Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to Trump has a mental breakdown as it all slips away. I mean, that title is probably, maybe it's a slight exaggeration, but it definitely seems like the momentum has swung the other side. Just, looking at it purely objectively, it does seem like the wheels have kind of come off a little bit for Trump. Obviously, there's going to be people out there who will vote for Trump regardless, but a lot of what he's been saying recently has just been quite odd. That whole rant about Kamala only using her black heritage now to her advantage when she used to only claim to be Indian. Yesterday, he went on a rant about how Google had been very bad or something like that. Just the long speeches, and there's footage actually being caught of his rallies where people are leaving the speeches, halfway in, a quarter of the way in. I'm not saying he's going to lose, but, I don't think it's going to be a slam dunk that a lot of Trump supporters are thinking. It's going to be close. And as obviously we get closer to November, there's going to be more and more things coming out. There's going to be a debate. There will be a debate. I would put money on that. And that's going to be absolute fireworks.
Another day of strong polling. Data guru Nate Silver now, for the first time, has Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump. And the forecast points in the right direction for the Democratic nominee. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Ehrenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, a.k.a. the Florida lawman here on the Midas Touch Network. So Nate Silver, who is a big data guy, you remember his site 538, which he no longer has. He has his own gig going on. He had been coming under a lot of criticism for projecting Donald Trump as the very likely winner of the election. He was down on the Democrats' chances, and even after Vice President Harris got in the race, it still was a long shot, according to Nate Silver, but the data has shifted, and Nate Silver has recognized it. And I know people thought that he was biased because he has done some business with Peter Thiel, but now he's saying that Kamala Harris has the lead and is more likely than Donald Trump to win the election. So let's take a look.
But polls, there's still such a long time left. There's almost 3 months. You've got still half of August, most of August, all of September, all of October.
According to the Daily Beast, Silver's model, which compiles the results of statewide polls and weights them based on reliability, showed Trump polling ahead of the Democratic candidate for most of July, including during the weeks immediately after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Harris began to lead the former president on July 31st, according to the data published on Sunday. Harris now leads Trump with 45.5% of the expected vote, compared to Trump's 44.1%. According to Silver's calculations, Harris now has a 50.5% chance to win the general election, compared to Trump's 48.8%. Harris also now has a 65.9% chance to win the popular vote, but the predicted elector share remains close, with the vice president only beating Trump by about 18 votes in the Electoral College. Now, keep in mind, this is before Harris made her vice presidential pick. This is clearly before the Democratic National Convention, both of which will give the vice president a clear bump in the polls, in addition to what she has already. The momentum will continue. She will, in my mind, extend her lead over Donald Trump, because you haven't even had the convention yet, which normally gives the candidate a big bump. And Trump is still coming off his convention, which is still probably his high mark, even though he really messed up in his pick.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Trump choosing J.D. Vance as his VP, I just don't know if it was a good pick, honestly. I think having someone a bit more established, someone a bit more recognized, politically, would have been better. Like JD, didn't he come out with that rant about how women who don't have kids or something like that aren't worth as much, which, brought such a massive response from, obviously a lot of women, including Jennifer Aniston. It's just like, Why did he say that? Like, is that something that you would say? Something so divisive?
Of J.D. Vance. By the way, I was one of the individuals who had bought Hillbilly Elegy long before J.D. Vance ever ever ran for office. Apparently, he had always thought about it. And now I want my money back because the person who wrote that book is clearly not the same person who is a candidate for vice president. Clearly not the same person who has decided to lick Donald Trump's boots. It's embarrassing, but that's what happens when you're a party of one. You have to pay homage to the leader. Well, on the Democratic side, a big reason that Kamala Harris has jumped out to a lead in the polls and now leads in Nate Silver's survey is because she has brought the Democratic coalition together. And here's some very interesting information about that. When it comes to black registered voters, Kamala Harris is doing much better than Joe Biden did in a recent CBS News poll. The question was asked, would their policies help black people? And according to the poll, 80% said Harris's policies would, whereas Trump's policies only got 20%. When it comes to enthusiasm, according to the same CBS News poll, 74% of black registered voters now say they will definitely vote, compared to 58% just a couple weeks ago. According to the same poll, Harris now has levels of support among black voters that is closer to what Mr. Biden had in 2020 and higher than Mr. Biden was getting in polling this year.
Wow.
Harris versus Trump now, 81% to 18%. Biden versus Trump back in July, 73% to 24%. In fact, as reported in a previous video on Midas Touch, in a recent poll in Michigan, crucial swing state, Donald Trump was polling at 0% of the black vote. Zero. I've never seen anything like that before.
And
although it doesn't get any worse,
you'd never think that because on Twitter, like there are massive, and on social media, there's massive sort of like black people for Trump profiles where it looks like, Trump, has overwhelmingly caught the black vote. But apparently, according to this, that's not so true. I'm sure there will be black people that do vote for Trump, obviously.
Worse than 0%. You got to believe that the enthusiasm for Kamala Harris and her poll numbers of black voters will continue to improve as Donald Trump continues to make the campaign about her identity and her supposedly being fake about her heritage and her ethnicity and her race. I mean, absolutely astonishing that that's the line of attack that they're going with. I mean, this is, of course, birtherism 2.0. It didn't work against President Barack Obama. It's not going to work against Kamala Harris. According to pollster Ben Lazarus,
it's incredible. Like, Kamala clearly is half black, half Indian. Like, that's her heritage. If you did a DNA test on her, that's what would show up. I just don't get how that you can dispute that. It's not something that's subjective. It's just bizarre that is, the strategy that Donald Trump and his advisors are going for, unless Donald Trump is just doing this on his own volition, which is possible. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that takes instruction.
Who's with Target Smart, he has a really interesting anecdote that he published about how bad things are going now for Trump. Been in focus groups with black voters in swing states last 2 weeks. Groups were originally organized as Biden voters, Trump voters, and undecided/third-party voters. Groups usually take 2 to 3 weeks to recruit, and in the days leading up to the sessions, we do confirmation calls. 2 days before the black Trump voter group, my recruiter reaches out to me in a mild panic. Confirmation calls were not going well, and the group was falling apart.
Oops.
Of the 7 black Trump voters versus Biden we originally recruited just 2 weeks earlier, 3 had to bail because they were now supporting Harris. We all know better than to generalize qual findings,
right? But
this remarkable problem is not one I've ever encountered in 15 plus years polling. It's only going to get worse after Trump's meltdown in front of...
I think for Trump, Trump needs another big event. Obviously, nobody wants to see another ear incident, but you cannot deny that massively helped his campaign. He needs something else to happen. I don't know what that could be. Maybe something like, I don't know, if Putin was to come out and say, oh, if Trump wins the election, I will leave Ukraine. I don't know, something. He needs something huge that he can point to and say, look, this is why I need to win this election, because only I can bring about X, Y, or Z, or do you see what I mean? That's what he needs.
One of the national black journalists, this whole campaign that he's waging against Kamala Harris, I think is going to only offend minority voters even more. And things are getting desperate over at Team Trump. They see the polls, and they decided to respond to them by denying them. This is after pushing every poll that showed him in the lead for the past several months. But now all of a sudden, there's poll denialism. That's what happens when you're on the other side of the polls. Hey, don't believe what you see and hear, believe me, right? Well, Trump is saying through his campaign advisor, now as this analysis shows, they'll even put a finger on the scale of polling to inflate results for her. This analysis is why the American people are seeing through it and will not allow this national gaslighting campaign to win, despite this manipulated result from CBS YouGov. It's worth noting that in July and August of 2020, their data showed Biden leading by 10 nationally. Okay. So they're going back to saying, hey, the polls were wrong about Biden beating Trump 4 years ago. They were wrong?
But they were...
Last time I checked, Biden did defeat Trump. So I don't think it's a good example to say, aha, the pollsters said that Biden would win 4 years ago.
But I'm guessing a lot of these people still deny the fact that Biden won that election fair and square. Look, I don't know. I wasn't part of the process of counting the votes. But you would think that if they faked that win, surely something would have leaked by now. The amount of people that would be involved in something like that, and the amount of money being thrown at that, at those people to leak it to the media, we would have heard about it. What do you guys think? I just don't know if you could keep that quiet. I don't know if you could do that, an election robbery like that.
Oh, and he did win, and he won by a large electoral college victory. So if that's where they're going, they're in a lot of trouble. And so I don't think they were really prepared for Kamala Harris, which is my greatest surprise in all this. I mean, you would think that the Republican Party would have at least had a plan B, but it looks like they did not. They were caught flat-footed, and she has done so many things right since she stepped up.
But the school administration stopped us from getting another 500, 600, even 1,000 people in. Thousands of people were told no, and that was okay, but we could have fit another 600 people. So I don't know anything about the school. I don't know anything about this school, but they could have allowed more people. You got people standing outside. Look at all the people outside. They could have come in. They could have come in. So we're not happy. Hello out there.
And now things are looking good, Midas Mighty. I mean, wow, what a difference a few weeks make. It's going in our direction to save our democracy, but ultimately the only poll that matters is the one that happens in November. So that is the latest. I'm Dave Ehrenberg.
Wow, super interesting. Look, there is still a long, long way to go. Let's find out. So when is US election? There's at least 3 months, right? So 5th of November. So literally a day short of 3 months. That is a long, long time. Anything can happen. If I had to put money on it now, though, as of right at this minute, if I was to predict it right at this minute, I'd probably say Kamala has the slight edge. But we're talking such tiny, tiny margins here. So honestly, in 3 days, on Friday, it could be completely different. Something could come out. There's just going to be so much back and forth swinging of momentum in the run up to this election. You would be, in my opinion, very unwise to put money on the result right now, based on any poll, because a lot of the time people often they change their mind at the voting booth. They might have said in the poll that they're going to vote for the Democrats and they end up voting Republican and vice versa. So yeah, there's still a long way to go. I will say, though, that Donald probably needs a much better strategy than the racial line, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense, you know, like attack her policies, attack, you know, things she's voted for that ended up being the wrong thing to vote for. Like that kind of stuff, you know, things that you can actually point to and say, look, American people, this is the person that wants to be president. She did this, this, and that. Like, that's the line that he should take. But, you know, Donald is going to do what Donald thinks is best. But yeah, this is going to get very interesting. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.